Hi, I just want to share a little bit of information here. So it's just going to be a short video, but I think it's food for thought, and people need to be paying attention. So first of all, this is America's budget deficit, and it's been described as a ticking time bomb, because, you know, everybody has to know about this ticking time bomb, because this deficit is the reason why, you know, there can't be healthcare and there can't be new social housing, and because there's no money, you know, the schools have got to stop using the heating and all these things. Libraries have to close, public services get withdrawn, people can't have welfare or food stamps. You know, all these things have got to go because there's this terrible deficit. And, you know, apparently the Congressional Budget Office, CBO, latest predictions show budget deficits of $981 billion in 2019 and in excess of $1 trillion by 2028. So using CBO's latest estimates, the 2019 budget deficit will be $981 billion. Total spending is estimated at $4.470 trillion. Of this, total mandatory spending will be $2.719 trillion. That is spending that is spent no matter what Congress does, as is mandated through Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid and other spending programmes that are set in statute and are outside the budget process. If Congress never passed an annual budget bill, this amount would be spent, since a particular statute, such as the Social Security Act, requires the spending. Net interest on the national debt, which has to be paid in order to avoid a default, will be $390 billion. You see, that means the total discretionary spending for 2019 will be $1.362, or only $381 billion more than the deficit. You see what I mean? So the interest is actually amounting to more than the deficit. So if you eliminated all the discretionary spending, including defence, well, no, not really including defence, is it? You will barely balance the budget. Realistically, this means either you give up on balancing the budget or you address mandatory spending, in particular Social Security, Medicare, you know, and Medicaid, which make up about 3/4 of mandatory spending. 3/4 on Social Security, you know, on actually providing help and care, compassion in a world where people can't always work and they need help, okay, and they can't afford insurance, medical insurance. But, you know, notice how these three things in this article, The Hill, is focusing very heavily on this terrible budget deficit, and, you know, really this is really what is causing it. You know, this is what is causing it. Social Security, Medicare and Medicaid. It makes up 3/4 of mandatory spending. There you go. You know, they're saying that people perhaps should be paid less. You know, just start paying people less. There you go, to health savings accounts. And extending the retirement age for Social Security. So, you know what, retire at 70, basically. Or 80, maybe. Who knows? This will not be easy, but the process must begin, since the number of people qualifying for benefits under these programmes will continue to increase with the ageing of the baby boomers, and the solution only gets more difficult as time moves on. And this is Gary Wolfram, is the William Simon Professor of Economics and Public Policy at Hillsdale College. So, you know, he's got dire concerns, hasn't he? So now, have a look at this. Now, this is from Truthdig, absolutely brilliant online, like, Medium magazine, covers many stories. You can subscribe freely, and they'll send you regular updates to your email, and I regularly read their articles and share them on Facebook and things, because and I'm often very impressed by what I read here, and by the writers themselves that contribute, most of them freely, to Truthdig. And so the Pentagon can't account for 21 trillion. That's not a typo. 21 trillion. Okay, 21 trillion. So, you know, if we go back to the Hills article, and you look at this, you know, well, it's actually under a trillion. If you look at this trillion deficit, so it's reaching a trillion almost, in excess of $1 trillion. So basically, according to the amount of money that has gone missing from the Pentagon budget, America could have ran up $1 trillion debt for the last, well, America wouldn't have even had to run up a debt of $1 trillion, would they? They would have had $1 trillion every year for the last 21 years to spend on all these things that apparently they've got no money for, these baby boomers. You know, because let's face it, the baby boomers have done all the hard work and earned all this cash that, you know, the Pentagon can just lose. What did you spend it on, Pentagon? What did they spend it on? 21 trillion. Now, this writer, Lee Camp, I mean, apparently he's a stand-up comedian, but I haven't seen his work, but I will check him out. He's explaining it, you know, his explanation, this article is absolutely brilliant. I love the way that he's written it. But, you know, he keeps saying 21 trillion. He's trying to get people to get their minds around it, you know. And he's explaining that, you know, you probably don't even know what a million looks like. Never mind 21 trillion. And this is why I've made this video, because I think we do need to stop and think very, very carefully. Look, that's why trying to understand, truly understand, that the Pentagon spent 21 trillion unaccounted for dollars between 1998 and 2015 washes over us like your mother telling you that your third cousin you met twice is getting divorced. It seems vaguely upsetting, but you forget about it 15 seconds later, because what else is there to do? 21 trillion. And, you know, it's all here. Because this Catherine Alstein-Fitz, former Assistant Secretary, says that the Department of Defence Officer and Inspector General had found 6.5 trillion worth of unaccounted for spending in 2015. This is like urban development. Skidmore, being an economics professor, thought it was something like, she means 6.5 billion, not trillion, because trillion would mean the Pentagon couldn't account for more money than the gross domestic product of the whole United Kingdom. But still, 6.5 billion of unaccounted for money is a crazy amount. So, yeah, it was trillion. And yeah, I'm not surprised he's cursing. That Please, please people. The amount of money supposedly in the stock market is 30 trillion. 1 trillion. How high do you imagine that stack of dollar bills would be? Okay. 1 trillion. It would be 63 miles high. That's 1 trillion. Now are people going to wake up finally? Because I've just done that juxtaposition there. Please, Americans, wake up. And the people of the world, really. Because all this attention being focused on immigrants and walls and Muslims and this and that, and look what's going on. We're being robbed blind, and it's all going into the military, into the corporate military, because I tell you now, that 21 trillion, well, how much did it cost to set Dino Corp up? How much of it has been spent on G4S? How much of it is being spent to help Israel? Was any of it spent on organising and orchestrating 9/11? There's still some big, huge questions to be answered there. Much as the media and the government are turning a blind eye to the elephant in the room every time they refer to 9/11. And actually it's getting so bad now that the media don't even like referring to 9/11 anymore. It's as if they can just sense the tomatoes being thrown at the TV screens across the nation. So, you know, when you look at this, that they're all quibbling, really, just a very minimal amount, a very minimal deficit, isn't it, compared to what has gone missing from the Pentagon budget. So, you know, you've got a fraction of what the Pentagon can't even account for. They're all focusing on that, aren't they? Now, who warned us about what kind of consciousness would be governing our world in these times? Jesus. Because he knew the user of consciousness of his own times, and he knew how they control people and how they manipulate people. They strain at gnats. They strain at gnats. They spend so much time straining at gnats that people don't notice they're being forced to swallow camels. They'll happily swallow camels, but they will strain at gnats. So they will happily swallow, America will happily swallow this camel as if it's nothing. Oh, what can we do about that? Oh, gosh. Right? Swallow that camel. But you know what, America? Please, please, do strain at this gnat. Strain at it, and don't ask any questions about any of why has America got this huge deficit? These baby boomers who've all worked hard, the vast majority of them, all their lives, they've been put their energy, blood, sweat and tears into that country, and what? There's a deficit of $1 trillion, and they're being blamed for it. Their Medicare, their healthcare, their pensions, Social Security, all that has to go, has to be cut because of this deficit. But meanwhile, the Pentagon, 21 trillion. Immigrants coming in, apparently they are responsible for the very poor state of America's economy at the moment. It's immigrants. It's people who are too lazy to work. It's poor people in general. The swamp that Trump came to drain, because that is what he was talking about. People thought he meant draining the swamp at the top. No, he was talking about draining the swamp of poor people. Because, you know, they've squeezed everything they can out of these people, the baby boomers, as they like to call them now. The baby boomers that made all of them rich and powerful. But that was the gnat. That's the gnat. This is the camel. And this corporate military, it's a very nasty camel, has come with it. I mean, how was it possible for all these billionaires suddenly to spring up all over America? These corporate militaries, they've been working in Afghanistan, they've been employed to work in Africa, all over the world they are. Acting on behalf of governments. Anybody can hire them. If you've got enough money, you can hire the corporate military to go and do a job for you. You know, these are serious times, people, and we do. Take your eyes off your mobile phone. They've got everybody hypnotised. So this really should have America. That's it. That's it. This deficit. I'm sorry. Ask the Pentagon. The Pentagon owes you, American citizens, $21 trillion. That's what the Pentagon owes America. Ask them for it back. Start charging them interest on it. Never mind about Medicaid cuts and Social Security cuts and making people work longer before they're allowed to retire. No, you're going to reduce retirement. You're going to improve your health service. You're going to provide a top-rate universal health service to the people of America, because you've got $21 trillion owed to you, America. And it is heartbreaking. It's heartbreaking when you think of how much suffering has happened for them to be able to get access to that amount of money. How many people have been robbed, and not just of everything, their time, their energy, their rights. 21 trillion. They can't account for it. Well, it's time to call them to account. Never mind about, you know, Trump and his Stormy Daniels affair. How that man got into office, really. But this is what needs to be focused on. And American citizens, this is it. You know, you've got a top-heavy military, because that's where this is the Pentagon, isn't it? So where has the money been siphoned off? Siphoned off to corporatising, you know, to militarising the corporations. Remember, these corporate military outfits with the top technology, they really have. They've got the top technology, top weapons, right? That they can be hired by anybody, and this is where I believe it's very likely that this is what has been funding them. Because where did they all spring up from suddenly? How does a corporate military suddenly appear without income, without funding? You know, people are not paying attention. He's there as a distraction. That is all he is a distraction. He's a puppet for the, you know, New World Order boys. He gets all the media attention. It's all a show. That's what it is. It's a show. Okay? Everybody knows that, you know, is very likely corrupt, you know, or blatantly so. But that's all part of it. He ain't bothered what people think of him. He's going to have security for life. He is now wealthy once again. And, you know, it's a show. Forget the show. Look what these corporations are doing. I mean, that is... I must say, I was speechless. When I saw it, I was just like, oh my gosh, 21 trillion. But like Lee Camp says, not everybody will take it like that. It's just like, oh dear, yeah. But you know, this, deadly serious, deadly serious. You know, these baby boomers and Medicare and Medicaid and Social Security. Okay. So, it's time to act. Be like a little child. Ask questions.